Amateur Traveler, episode 846. Today, the Amateur Traveler talks about an ossuary in Orchette, beaches and James Bond, troglodytes, and truly, as we go to Puglia, in the heel of the boot of Italy. This is Chris Christensen from Amateur Traveler. Let's talk about Puglia. I'd like to welcome to the show Kate Storm from ourescapeclause.com. We're going to talk about why later. Kate, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chris. How are you doing?
Good. And Kate's come to talk to us about a region of southern Italy called Puglia. Kate, what's your connection with Puglia?
Yeah, I am a travel blogger and I adore Italy, love Italy, been to a lot of Italy, spent about a year there if you add it all up. And Puglia is this region on the heel of the boot. It's known for its beaches, and we actually had a trip booked there in 2020, and we were going to do this whole big thing. We all know how that story ends, but we finally made it in 2022 and did a huge trip, which was great.
Excellent. And why should someone go to Puglia?
Yeah, so essentially, Puglia is best known for a few things. Its beaches, its food, its adorable whitewash towns, and the fact that it is one of Italy's more affordable beach destinations, which is, of course, a draw.
Excellent. What kind of itinerary are you going to recommend for us?
Yeah, so there's basically two ways to structure a one-week trip to Puglia. So I'm going to talk about the way that involves moving around more, but also in the back of your mind, just keep in mind that if you want to see a smaller section of it, renting an apartment for a week in one of these beach towns and day tripping can be done. Most of these places are within an hour or two of each other. It's just not that far of a distance.
Okay.
So essentially in Puglia, you're going to want to see a few things. You're going to want to hit the beach. You're going to want to see some history. You're going to want to hit one of the two UNESCO World Heritage Sites at least, and you're going to want to relax. So what I would recommend, and a version of what we ended up doing condensed into 1 week, is to start in Monopoli, which is a beautiful whitewash town not far from Bari, which makes it easy to get to.
And Bari, the capital of Puglia.
Bari is the capital of Puglia, yes, one of the easiest places to get to by plane or train. Then head out to Alberobello for a night, which is home to the Trulli houses that are one of Puglia's UNESCO World Heritage Sites. Maybe spend a night in one of those. And then head down further south to the Salento subregion and base yourself in Otranto, which has a lot of great day trips and swimming nearby.
Okay. So you started us in, I always want to call it Monopoly.
Me too. I'm trying really hard not to.
Monopoly.
Yeah. Yes. So essentially, if you're going to arrive in Puglia and let's say that you're flying over from the U.S., there's basically two ways to do that. You can either fly into a major transportation center like Rome and Milan and take a high-speed train down to Bari, or you can fly right into Bari if you feel like springing for those plane tickets. It's a great place to rent a car, pick one up. You can do this itinerary without a car, but your life is going to be much easier if you rent a small car and then just hop on the road, drive the 40 minutes down to Monopoli, and stick your toes, not so much in the sand, but off the rocky shore.
Okay. And this is not going to be flat. So for driving, you've got to be able to drive hills, I'm assuming.
Yes and no. So up in the Etruria Valley area, which is where you're going to find Alberobello, there are some hills, but it's not a particularly mountainous region. It's actually some of the easiest driving that we've done in Italy. I would say, maybe even a little easier than Tuscany, way easier than somewhere like Sicily. It's just not that crowded. Now, if you go on August 15th, maybe it is. Outside of that, you have 2-lane roads to yourself. They're pretty well marked. GPS does well. It's pretty relaxing driving.
And you say if you go in August, it's going to be crowded because it is a popular destination for Italians, among other Europeans, to go in August.
Exactly. So as some of your listeners may be familiar with, August is beach and or mountain vacation month in Europe. So it's going to be the most competitive time to be at any beach destination, Puglia included. And August 15th is the official Ferragosto, which is Italy's official beach holiday. And that in particular is going to be just absolute madness.
How did I not know that Italy had an official beach holiday? Okay.
Yeah, it's a long story. It dates back to the fascist days, and I think it has a history beyond that too. But yeah, that whole month is going to be intense, but I wouldn't go in the middle for sure.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So you've got us getting a car, driving down to Monopoli?
Yes. And Monopoli makes a great first base. You've got really cute little piazzas, the remains of some castle walls that you can walk along the water. It's called a lungomare. There's a few of those in Puglia. You have some great gelata. I think there was one called Bella Blue that we particularly enjoyed. And you also have access to a lot of the most popular places in Puglia via day trip, including Polignano al Mare, which is the beach in Puglia that you have seen a picture of if you've seen any pictures of this region.
Okay. Just because it's a very pretty beach.
It's very pretty. It's a very small beach, actually. I don't really recommend going to the beach there in the summer. It's full of big rocks and pebbles, but it's situated between two rocky cliffs, and the houses are perched on top of them, so it has this very beautiful overlook. Yeah, and it's one of the most picturesque places in the region.
So you're not recommending we go there necessarily. You're recommending instead
They're literally 15 minutes apart. So
Okay.
Personally, with my travel style, I prefer to be in a little bit more of a relaxed town to sleep. Easier to get in and out. But yeah, bus, train, car, you can get up there and very quickly. That's
Got it. Okay. So it's in between Bari and
and Monopoli, correct?
Monopoli.
Yes. Yes, it is.
Got it.
Yeah. It's also one of the most popular places for boat tours. You can do those a lot of places in Puglia, but Polignano al Mare in particular, it has those great cliffs. So it's a very popular place to visit.
Okay. So we're day tripping up to Polignano al Mare.
Yes. Yeah, I would go ahead and go up there personally. And then Monopoli itself is beautiful, but you can really see a lot of the quote-unquote attractions because these are small towns in terms of like churches or Giuseppe Garibaldi and so on in the mornings and evenings before and after your day trips. So
Okay.
I would actually take a second day in Monopoli and I would go out to a Lido, which is an Italian beach club. And they are everywhere on the coast. The entire coast is completely covered in them. They are pay to access, which is unusual for us Americans, but it's very normal in Italy. You rent
Right.
your chairs for the day. You have a bar there, you have drinks, you've got a restaurant, and you just relax because that is a big part of what Puglia is about.
And do you have a favorite beach club of the many there?
I can go ahead and give you the name of the one we went to, which I did enjoy. I hope that I saved that. No, honestly, it didn't make enough of an impression on us to make my notes list. I apologize. But really, there's just...
That does a lot.
Yeah. It was nice. It was. But it's like going to a bar in Italy, like to go out for a coffee. It's not necessarily something that you pick and choose between. They're just sort of there.
Okay.
Yeah, but there are a lot to choose from. If you do want to swim for free, there are some free beaches right along the edge of Monopoli. They are small, but you'll see people anywhere on the coast. Like if you can get in the water, if there's a rock or a sandbar, there's people who are throwing down towels there. Like you drive down the road and you just see random people pulling off to go swim.
Okay.
Yeah.
And in terms of swimming in the water here, so we're not necessarily recommending you're coming in August, but we're recommending you're coming when you can swim in this would be the Adriatic. When
Yes.
do you recommend people come?
So personally, I think that June is the ideal month to go to the beach in Italy because the Italians really haven't started yet, but it's warm enough. July is going to be busier, but not as bad as August, and May and September are both doable as well, especially for May if you are from a colder climate. I'm from Texas. I can't do it, but a lot of people do. Yeah. If you want to go to Puglia in the off season, you're going to get great affordable prices and you can of course still enjoy the views, but this is a seasonal destination for sure.
Okay. Where to next?
So hang out in Monopoli. You could take one more day trip from there, or you could go ahead and bounce up to Alberobello as a base. The next section can go either way.
And you mentioned there were things we were going to see at night when we were in Monopoli. Did you want to mention what they were that you would recommend that we do in the evenings when we're not day tripping?
I didn't mean tourist attractions as much as watching the sunset, grabbing a drink, having dinner, eating some orecchiette pasta, etc.
Okay. The pasta you mentioned there, what type of pasta?
Yeah, so the orecchiette pasta, it is from Puglia. You've probably seen it. It's pretty popular, but it's actually, the name comes from little ears. So it's those little
Oh, yeah,
divots.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes, it's delicious. It's very traditional in Puglia. Add some seafood, of course, and go to town.
Okay.
Yeah. And I can go into more things to eat in Puglia. Really, when you're not on the beach or road tripping or in a small town, eating is the best thing to do in Puglia. This is the region that grows a large percentage of Italy's food. It's enormously agricultural, and they actually produce 40% of the olive oil in the country, which is remarkable.
Okay. And are there particular restaurants you would recommend in this region? This area right now, Monopoli?
So unfortunately, the first restaurant that I was going to share, it does not look like it is there anymore, but a couple that I can definitely recommend if people are looking would be Trattoria San Domenico, which is just a nice classic one. And then if you want something a little casual, you want to grab a bite to eat whenever you're hungry, the King's Street Food will go ahead and do just some classic relaxed Pulian food.
Okay.
Sandwiches and things of that nature.
Cool.
Yeah.
Where to next?
So once we spend our evenings in Monopoli, we'll head out to El Barabello, and that is probably going to be the second most photographed place in Puglia. This is where the Trulli houses are most concentrated, and those are those historic conical white houses that are built with a craftsmanship that they say dates back thousands of years. There's evidence of them going back at least 1,000, and they can find ones from around 1400. So what I would recommend for a kind of a unique experience would be to actually spend a night in one, which is a fantastic way to spend an evening in Puglia and gives you the benefit of going to El Barabello but not fighting all of the other day trippers, because it does get like a madhouse, especially in the summer. I would recommend going ahead, driving out there. You can stop at another town on the way, particularly if you want to leave Monopoli in the morning. Just depends on how much beach time you want to do. That really depends on the weather, etc. But as you're driving out between the two, the towns of Loco Rotondo, Martina Franca, and Ostuni are considered some of the most popular whitewashed inland villages to visit as you're on your way.
Okay.
Those would be great places just to stop for a wander, enjoy a view, have a coffee, and kind of keep things moving, give you a sample of some other places without necessarily committing to packing your bags again, if that makes sense.
Sure. This episode of Amateur Traveler is sponsored by MikeandLauraTravel.com. Mike and Laura behind that website got on my radar at least a year ago by now, because although they started travel blogging in 2015 and I started in 2005, I think they may be better at it than I am. At least they're more successful financially. And they're teaching a course on how to improve your travel blog, 3 secrets to exponentially grow your travel blog. In the training, they're going to cover how to drive thousands of readers to your blog each day on autopilot, 100% without social media, how to convert your travel blog traffic into consistent and predictable passive income, and how to take your travel blog to 6 figures and beyond. This is stuff that I need to learn. They're the hosts of the Travel Blogging Summit and the Travel Blogging School in-person retreats. They started their blog in 2015 and struggled to make consistent income for years, and then in 2019 they discovered SEO and figured out they didn't need to spend all their time on social media. If you're interested in learning more about how to be a travel blogger, go to mikeandlauratravel.com/travel-blog. That's mikeandlauratravel.com/travel-blog. And tell them Amateur Traveler sent you.
Yeah. So once you get to El Barabello, what you're going to want to go ahead and do is I would start by going ahead and just enjoying a sunset from one of the viewpoints. There's a couple of different places that you can see the view, like traditionally, quote unquote, in El Barabello, but one of the most interesting ones to me and what's different about the town is that all of the little souvenir shops that you see are housed in those Trulli. If you buy something, even if it's €1, they'll let you on the roof. And then you can go ahead and then you can just go ahead and go up and get however many angles you want and enjoy the view.
I didn't even know one could go on the roof. Okay.
Yeah, it's actually, they're surprisingly cool up there. Most of them have a flat area that you can't necessarily see from the street, but they're
Okay.
built so close together that over the years, I think they've just emerged.
Now, when you booked a time to stay in a Truly house, you did that using the usual booking engines, or is there a
Yes.
special
Yeah, if you
Truly.com or okay?
no, I'm sure there was once upon a time, but no, they're all on booking.com now, so
Got it.
very easy to find. I did go ahead and look it up just out of curiosity for your listeners, and we spent one night out there right in the center of town. Wonderful host, just the nicest man. And we spent €127 for the night. So
Okay.
yeah, that's about the range you're looking for. This, in this case, it was actually the one that he had grown up in. It was his family home, which made it very special. He had some photos in there of the earlier days.
Okay.
Yeah. So, as far as Alberobello goes, there are, because it is so famous, a few more quote unquote sightseeing things to do here, but mostly they revolve around going around and looking for the most famous Truly. So you're welcome to get a walking tour for that. A lot of people do enjoy them, but we did not opt to do that. We just literally created our own walking tour for them. There is one, Trullo Savano, which is the only one where you can go up onto the second floor. The way that they're built, they all have storage in the top, but most places you can't go up them. And then, yeah, there's all kinds of little quirky ones. The Trullo Siamese, which are two that are tied together, that sort of thing.
Okay.
There are also a few churches in town. Of course, the one that is in the form of a Trullo is going to be the most popular.
Okay. All right. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. But in general, it's a very relaxed place as long as you are not there in the middle of the day. Then, if it is the summer, it is just incredibly hot and incredibly crowded. So, I would highly recommend, if you do spend the night there, to get an early start in the morning and try to enjoy wandering through the town before day trippers begin.
Okay. Which would be like 9, 10 o'clock.
Yeah, maybe closer to 10. Puglia is
Okay.
not a very early rising type of place, but it truly does get hot. If you're taking a summer trip, the downside is that while the beach weather will be nice, when you're in the inland here in the Itria Valley, you are going to sweat. So be prepared for that.
Okay.
Yeah. I did have one restaurant that I wanted to mention here too before we move on, Chris. The Ristorante Il Pianacolo. We had a great meal there and got to eat outside overlooking all of the rooftops of the Truly, which is really what you're in Alberobello to do.
Got it.
All right. I'm mentioning spending one night in Alberobello, but I do want to just mention for your listeners one possible variation. Again, the interesting thing about Puglia is that you are in a situation where if everything's perfect on the coast for swimming, things are going to be hot in the inland and vice versa. But if you want to try to balance that and you're just like, you know what, I'm going to do everything, I'm only here, which is how I tend to go, I would actually go ahead and take a day, whether or not you want to spend a night there or you just want to take a day trip from Alberobello, and I would head out to Matera, which is actually in the region of Basilicata, not in Puglia at all, but it is just over the border and it is one of the most unique places in Italy, so it's popularly included on Puglia itineraries, and I do think it's worth visiting.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you say unique. I don't know what to expect there.
Yeah, so essentially it's truly a long story with Matera because there's about 8,000 years of human civilization there. But fast forward to the 20th century and you have what can be interesting and topical for us. So essentially Matera is built into the cliff. It's built into caves in this inland valley. So it creates these incredible views and it's full of cave homes and shops, which is how people lived for thousands and thousands of years with varying levels of success. So if you picture just this completely brown-washed town, it's not a desert, but in the summer, like it looks that way. We're not talking about a lot of greenery or anything here. Fast forward to the middle of the 20th century, Mussolini decided that people living in dark caves without electricity was not a great idea, and he christened it the shame of Italy, and attempted to go ahead and empty the cave homes, which are called sassi. And that project wasn't actually completed until decades later, but at that point in 1953, they started really forcibly moving people out of these homes, which was obviously deeply controversial, and they moved them into the surrounding quote-unquote new city, new by Italian standards, not new. And as a result, basically this city was completely emptied. Jump forward another 50, 60 years, and what do? We do something that we do all over the world. We decide that these places are really cool, and we turn them into boutique hotels. So now some people have moved back into the city, though really it's now become a tourist attraction. So it's a very interesting place to visit. It's got a lot of dark, sad history, but also this long tale of human history. And for those who are interested, it's also a big filming location. So,
I was going to say, I saw a picture of it, and I'm like, I know this place.
Yes, yeah. They use it for a lot of quote-unquote historical things. I believe The Passion of the Christ was filmed there.
That's what I was saying.
Yeah. So it's, and I think, I haven't actually seen this yet, but I think one of the newer James Bond movies also filmed there.
That was what I looked at it, and I thought it looked like the new James Bond movie. I haven't seen that, whether that was true, but yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So personally, I think it's definitely worth visiting, but I do have to warn your listeners, we visited at the end of June, and we unfortunately got a cave hotel that, while beautiful and had this gorgeous balcony where we took these amazing photos, did not have working AC. So it was a long trip to Matera, but if you're willing to brave the heat, drink lots of water, wear sunscreen, it's definitely worth visiting. If you're flying all the way to Puglia, you're not going to regret going. Yeah. So that side trip done, either as a day trip or if you want to spend the night one of the Sassy like we did, also an option. It just depends on how much you want to pack. If after those couple of nights, however, in the inland, like us, you're probably going to be ready to go back to the sea. So,
well, and we should say this isn't going to come as a surprise for anybody. This is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Oh, yes. Yes, of course. I should have mentioned that. It is. And while you're there, I wouldn't necessarily recommend hiking in the summer, but visiting the churches and viewpoints is definitely worth it. If you want to hike, come in February.
Okay.
Yeah.
Although you come in December, I see pictures of it completely covered in snow. So
yes, yeah, there are
it has seasons.
Yes, maybe October. I always say that's the perfect month to be in Italy. But as far as the rest of your week goes, I would definitely book it back to the sea. And personally, there's a few towns from the far south you can stay in, but I am partial to Otranto. Beautiful town, has a castle. Beach is right in the center of town. It's a great place to base yourself and take some day trips.
Okay.
Yeah. So essentially, I would go ahead. When you get there, you're just going to want to go get in the water, like, honestly, after the last couple of days, which you can do right in the center of town, like right outside of the historic center. There are several public beaches. You can either go to the Lido, as we discussed before, or you can go to the smaller free beach that's right there.
Got it. And we're no longer on the Aegean. We're no longer on the Eastern.
Adriatic, no.
On the Adriatic. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
Doing a trip to Greeks coming up here in a month, so I've got Aegean on my mind. Yes, we're no longer in the Adriatic here, but we're in the Ionian, I think.
Yes, I believe just the tip of it there where they start to meet together. Absolutely beautiful water, and once you sufficiently cool off to be able to think that sightseeing is fun again, they have a gorgeous Duomo in the center of town. It was once a mosque, and it has this wonderful mosaic floor. It also has one of those interesting chapels that you see throughout Italy that's decorated with human remains, which can be very interesting. It's called the Chapel of Martyrs, and it dates to, I believe, a Turkish invasion long ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So
interesting. It used to be a mosque, so I'm guessing this used to be home for Saracen pirates at that point.
So you're also going to see right around here, there's one of the best beaches in Puglia right outside of town. It's actually called the Bay of Turkey, which is not a reference to the beautiful Lidos that are there now, but a reference to former invasion. So there's a lot of history here, like Sicily. If you can name it, and they ruled the Mediterranean at some point, they once controlled this area.
Got it.
Yeah, I would also recommend definitely checking out the castle. The Aragonese Castle was built, of course, to defend Otranto during this great time of everyone wanting to control these waters in and out of Italy. It is not related. If you read old Gothic stories, I thought this was interesting too. The Castle of Otranto, the book. Are you familiar with that, Chris?
I am not familiar with the book.
Okay, so it is a popular classic Gothic book. I was actually assigned it in a college class. And the writer did name the story after the Castle of Otranto, but he never actually visited Otranto. So no real connection.
Shakespeare never went to Verona, as far as we know.
Exactly, yeah. But it does offer a little bit of intrigue. And then they do also have a couple of other things to see. The Church of St. Peter is very beautiful. I think it's 800 or 900 years old, covered in frescoes. And they have a lungomare like Monopoli to go ahead and enjoy the views. But again, this is a beach town and you're here to swim.
Okay.
Yeah. So as far as that goes, I mentioned the Bay of Turkey. That's just outside of town. Great place to go swimming. But I did want to mention one other place, Chris, and that is the Cave of Poetry, or the Grotto della Poesia, which is about 30-minute drive outside of town in a pretty rural area in Puglia.
Okay.
Not really quite sure how to describe it. It is a sea cave in the sense, but if you've ever been to the Yucatan and you're familiar with a cenote, it looks like that. So you've got these karst formations and this giant, like, naturally made swimming hole. There's a short little cave you can swim through, and it's just a fun, very unique place to be. And there are also some historic ruins that are just outside of it, so you can never forget you're in Italy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the history of one of those peoples who used to be here.
Yes, exactly. I believe it's Roman, but I would have to double check that.
Romans were here for sure.
Yes, yeah, that one we're pretty sure about. Yeah.
Excellent. This episode of Amateur Traveler is sponsored by Shady Rays Sunglasses. Shady Rays makes quality and good-looking sunglasses that cost less. My eye doctor actually recommended I wear sunglasses more to help prevent cataracts. But honestly, I don't think I was wearing them as much until I got a nice, good-looking pair from Shady Rays. I also don't have to worry as much about losing or breaking a pair because they will send me a replacement pair for free if I do. Shady Rays isn't happy unless you're happy. You have 30 days to try the sunglasses, and if you don't like them, you can return them for free. And also with every order, Shady Rays Impact Program works with nonprofits worldwide to make an impact on the life of children and young adults. So I'm feeling great about working with Shady Rays. What's better than getting one pair of Shady Rays and not worrying if you break or lose them? Getting two. Go to shadyrays.com/traveler and use code TRAVELER for a limited time. When you buy one pair of Shady Rays, you'll get a second pair free. That's shadyrays.com/traveler, code TRAVELER to get a second pair of Shady Rays free. shadyrays.com/traveler, code TRAVELER. And thanks to Shady Rays for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. Where to next?
So essentially, if you go ahead and add 2 or 3 days in Monopoli in the region there, 2-ish days in Alberobello, maybe Otranto, or maybe Matera, and 2 or 3 days in Otranto swimming, you're just about running out of time. I do want to mention just a couple of other possible day trips, just if your readers have time. Some people spend 2 hours in a town, some people spend all day, different paces. But right across the peninsula from Otranto, which is not very long if you look at a map, there is a town called Gallipoli, which is framed by defensive walls and is another just beautiful, relaxing beach town that if you're wanting to go ahead and walk through a historic center and enjoy some views is a great option.
Not to be confused with the Gallipoli in Turkey.
As I always remind myself when talking about it, of course, we can make an educated guess as to where the name came from. But
that is a pretty town. I want to say it looks like Dubrovnik almost.
It does, yeah.
That really small walled town look.
Yes, exactly. Because of the way that the fortress walls remain, it just has a very unique look. As far as attractions go, it is very similar to Otranto in the sense that it has a castle and some walls and a lungomare and the beaches. But if, like us, your idea of the perfect trip is to see as many varieties as possible, it's definitely worth taking the time to go out there.
And the name, by the way, derives from beautiful city.
Oh, imagine that.
Imagine that.
Yes.
It's okay. I can picture that.
Yes. Yeah. And the other place I wanted to mention, or one of the others I should say, would be Lecce, which is a Baroque city in between Otranto and Gallipoli. It's one of the further north. It makes a triangle because there's only so many roads. But it is considered the Florence of the South. So if you're looking for beautiful architecture, Baroque instead of Renaissance in this case, it is a great place to be. Do a little sightseeing, visit the university. They have a Roman amphitheater. And then it is also a great place, and I feel like this is mentioning if you're short on time, to close out your trip. It has a great train station that can whisk you off to anywhere else in Italy if you need to catch a train, certainly to Bari if you flew in there, and you can drop off your rental car. It's not necessary. You can drive back up to Bari pretty quickly, but it allows you to avoid doubling back and maybe spend an afternoon somewhere new.
Okay. Now, one thing I have to ask, so we flew into Bari or took a train or something, got there as our hub probably, but we didn't stay there.
Yes, and essentially that just comes down to the whole trying to squeeze everything into 1 week thing. There are some beautiful places to see in Bari Vecchia with its historic center. It has some beautiful attractions. The Basilica San Nicola is lovely to see. There's a castle. They do have an archaeological museum as well, and some beaches in town. Just with only a week to work with, choices have to be made.
And that begs the question of if I extended the constraints that I put on you of a week, which were coming from me, just so everybody is clear, yes. Where would you add on? So
with more than a week, you would definitely want to rework the order of this a little bit. Take a look at a map before you swear to it. But I would recommend actually heading north of Bari. You're going to run into some beautiful towns up here. North of Bari is... All of Puglia could really still be considered, quote-unquote, off the beaten path for North American travelers. It is getting more beaten every year, but it's nothing like going to somewhere like Cinque Terre or the Amalfi Coast. You're going to feel like you're in Italy here, so to speak. But if you head north of Bari, you're going even further off the beaten path. So I would definitely recommend going up to a town called Trani, which is not very far north of Bari at all, which is another one of those picturesque towns, and then heading over to Gargano National Park, which is this beautiful national park with these gorgeous caves and cliffs and rock formations that is a wonderful place for boat tours. There's a little town called Vieste right on the edge of it with this beautiful, I guess you just call it a peninsula that just juts out to sea and creates absolutely beautiful views.
Got it. So Trani is another coastal town.
It is, yes. And it's basically, if you're driving up to Gargano National Park from Bari, you'll get pretty close to it. It's definitely worth a visit.
Got it. And peninsula, I think, would be the right term.
Yes. It seems a little dramatic for peninsula, but yes. And then one other place that I just do want to mention because it's at the top of my personal Puglia bucket list is right up here is also where you can take either a boat or, if you're feeling like a splurge, a helicopter out to the Trimidi Islands, which if you want to see just absolutely gorgeous landscapes, pure water, beautiful hiking, that's a wonderful and decidedly offbeat place to be.
Okay, and these are not on my radar at all. Okay.
I would desperately like to go. Unfortunately, I can't speak to them too much personally because they are still on my own personal bucket list, but that will be soon, I hope.
Okay, yeah. Excellent. Is there anything else that you want to tell people in terms of if they're going to go to Puglia, here's something they need to know?
For American travelers specifically, I do just want to say, and this is something that I try to point out to my readers when I can, it's easier than you think because it is still somewhere that's just rising on the radar. I tend to get a lot of questions about the language barrier and things like that. It's a very relaxed place to be, more relaxed in many ways than going to somewhere like the Amalfi Coast. Mm-hmm. And I think you'll find yourself getting there and being like, oh, this is not very intimidating at all.
I found that spending some time with Learn in the Car Italian helped me get around Italy for a while.
Definitely. And somewhat off topic, but one other thing that I do just want to make sure that I mention is the carbs. Puglia has a lot of great food.
You mentioned food, but you'd only got a chance to mention one. Okay.
Yeah. They have a lot of cheese and a lot of different carbs, but a couple of my favorites that I actually now try to source all over Italy where I can. Pasticciotto would be their version of an Italian breakfast pastry. So these are going to be little oval cakes. They tend, like a cornetto further north, to be stuffed with either Nutella or jam or something along those lines, but they're made with ricotta cheese. So it's a lot richer than you expect if you're expecting a bread product. Focaccia is also very popular here. It is from here. It's also from up north in Liguria. Puglia does independently have a claim on it. If you're looking for a quick snack or a bite to eat while you're out at the beach, find a focaccia shop. You're not going to be disappointed. And it's also going to be something that's open all day, which if your readers have been to Italy before, they have these designated meal times where lunch restaurants are from 12 to 3 or 7 to 11. Focaccia is available all day, which makes it great. And also taralli, which are these tiny little, you kind of think of them as like round Italian pretzels, and they look so basic packaged, and they are just so good, especially if you get one spiced with some olive oil and maybe some pepper. So if you're looking for a taste of Italy to bring home, keep an eye out for it. You won't be sorry.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. And then,
excellent.
Yeah.
Any other foods you want to recommend? I don't want to cut you off there.
Oh, I could keep going forever. Burrata cheese, of course. And in terms of things to bring home, the olive oil. You'll never have better.
As we get to some of our wrap-up questions, you're standing in the prettiest spot in Puglia. Where are you standing and what are you looking at?
Oh, dear. That's very difficult, but I guess in order to pick one that's classic, because I am just a great fan of all things classic, I would be standing... So if you go in Pogliano al Mare, so we're going all the way back to the beginning, and there's several viewpoints and vistas there, and they're all beautiful, but if you held to Belvedere su Lama Monocile, or even just the terrace of the sea, they call it a couple of different things, you're going to be overlooking that iconic beach.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. And that will definitely be, I call it the oh wow, I'm here moments, right? The oh yeah, I'm actually here in Puglia. That's where you'll find it there.
Okay. And this is looking down, for those of you who are not looking at the pictures that are embedded in the episode, on not just the rugged coast, but the blue-green water and, yeah.
Yes,
okay.
And the colorful umbrellas of the people who are on the beach. Oh, that does remind me of one just practical tip I wanted to throw in there that you mentioned before. When it comes to beaches in Puglia, there are actually a fair number of sandy beaches, but you're also going to spend quite a bit of your time on pebbles, which is fairly common in Europe. Some of them are rougher than others. I'm a big fan of water shoes for things like that. Honestly, you'll have a better time. I promise.
Yep.
Yeah.
Excellent. One thing that makes you laugh and say only in Puglia.
Oh, that's hard because I just keep wanting to say only in Italy. It's funny, like the thing that comes to mind truly is just the intensity of the heat in some of the inland places and how little you care. They're just, when you're in the Truly, they are actually pretty fantastic at keeping you cool. And you're just like, oh, people have been doing this a long time for a reason.
Very good. Excellent. And if you had to summarize this region in just 3 words, what 3 words would you use?
Beach.
Sure.
Truly.
Okay.
I'm going to cheat. Fresh food.
We'll put a hyphen in there. Okay.
That's it, yeah.
I know if I get away with that. Great. Our guest again has been Kate Storm. And Kate, we mentioned the name of your website is ourescapeclause.com. There's a story behind that.
Yeah, yes. Yeah. Before I was a travel blogger, 85 lifetimes ago, I worked in insurance. And of course, an escape clause is a big part of an insurance contract, a way to get out of the contract or what the requirements are. And the website was mine, as well as just going to travel the world. So I stand by it for sure.
Excellent. And if we wanted to send people to your best post at ourescapeclause.com on Puglia, where are we going to send them?
Great starting place. I have several, but the one that's going to give you an overview of what we talked about today would be our 7-day Puglia road trip itinerary, and the URL for that is just Puglia road trip itinerary.
I'll put a link to that in the show notes so people won't have to look it up. Kate, thanks so much for coming on Amateur Traveler and sharing with us your love for Italy and especially for Puglia.
I really appreciate it, Chris. Thank you so much.
Thanks, as always, to the patrons of the show who help support Amateur Traveler. If you're interested in learning more about becoming a patron of the show, you can go to patreon.com/amateurtraveler. No new information about the Amateur Traveler trips. There's still space on the Japan trip in 2023. We're going to need to get some people on that trip right away if we're going to do that. And then I'm trying to open up a second trip next year to Morocco in the spring. And with that, we're going to end this episode of Amateur Traveler. If you have any questions, send an email to host@amateurtraveler.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at amateurtraveler.com. And thanks so much for listening.